Yes.
Come back. Knox.
Good evening, America. Thank you for joining Cross Politic. Pastor Toby Chuck Knox is not here, but the water boy is. And campus preacher Keith Darrell. This is the last week that Knox will ever leave the studio. I think
we're gonna chain him to this table.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, he can't leave ever again. Hey, the Daily Wire's giving into the gay agenda. The Blaze is giving into the gay agenda. The Fox is giving it one step ahead of them, giving into the tranny agenda.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
dump fake conservative outlets by joining the Fight Laugh Feast army. Not only will you be aiding in our fight to take down secular and legacy media, but you'll also get access to content placed in our club portal, such as past shows, all our conference talks, and exclusive content for club members that you won't be able to find anywhere else. Lastly, you also get discounts for our conferences at the Fight Laugh Feast conference. Hey, we're going to be in Knoxville in October.
Yeah.
So if you got $10 a month, kick it over our way. You can sign up at flfnetwork.com. Guys, really, I mean, that was like stuff we were supposed to do before the show.
That's really, I know.
like adjust the volume, that's kind of stuff you do, like sound check.
We did it. We did it. Don't worry. We got it.
Yeah.
So this past week, the Episcopalian Church,
which I grew up in.
Why do we have to talk about this?
What was going on in the pews for decades finally caught up to their resolves. Okay, so the Episcopalian Church,
really,
the bylaws.
Like their resolves.
They're literally their resolves.
I thought that was like a Texas thing. Or a gayism.
Their bylaws. And so the 80th General Convention now calls for the Episcopalian Church to advocate for access to gender-affirming care in all forms. Social, medical, or any other. So gender-affirming care, not just socially, but medically.
Okay.
And all ages.
That's horrific.
As part of our baptismal call
oh my gracious,
to respect the dignity of every human being. And then it goes on to say, so that was the first resolve. The second resolve says the 80th General Convention affirms that all Episcopalians should be able to partake in gender-affirming care with no restrictions on movement, autonomy, or timing, and be it timing. So I get what, a 1-year-old? I mean, is that what they're saying there?
Yeah, their baptism.
Then it resolved, the 80th General Convention understands that the protection of religious liberty extends to all Episcopalians. I guess that's becoming a mute point at this point. What is an Episcopalian at this point? To utilize to aid others in procurement of or to offer gender-affirming care. And then last resolve. And this 80th General Convention supports supports public policy at local, state, and national levels in all countries to support gender-affirming care. Yeah. So that is
Keith,
the Episcopalian Church. What's going on?
I left it. This is why I left it. I did wash the priest's hands growing up. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
This is your fault.
Yeah, so I may have played a role. I don't know. But I don't get what in the world is the Episcopal Church doing protecting religious liberty? That's kind of a state issue. Like here in Christ Church, it's not like, oh, we want to protect your religious liberty to go worship Baal while we're doing our thing. So I don't even understand what the Episcopal Church is doing at this point.
Yeah. What about gender affirming care for animals?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't mention animals at all. And I'm also wondering about
furries are going to be on there.
I know.
Sooner than later.
Adam, what about? I mean, that's the thing is, and then what about a minor attracted people? MEPs.
Maps?
Folks, my name is Miranda. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm a licensed professional counselor and sex therapist in Erie, Pennsylvania. And today I want to talk about minor attracted persons. And
pedophiles.
I want to talk about minor attracted persons because they are probably the most vilified population of folks in our culture. And most folks are making incorrect assumptions about them without actually knowing much about them. And those assumptions create harm for an already marginalized population. You may have noticed that I'm using the term minor attracted persons, sometimes abbreviated to MAPS, instead of the more commonly used term pedophile. And I'm doing this because the term pedophile has moved from being a diagnostic label to being a judgmental, hurtful insult that we hurl at people in order to harm them or slander them. I also prefer person-first language that recognizes that any label we might apply to a person is only part of who they are and doesn't represent everything that they are.
Pause.
We are all...
Pause.
I don't have a pause.
Come on. But notice what they're talking. What she says there. It's only part of what a person is.
Right.
But I thought it was everything. I think I thought if you didn't affirm someone's sexual identity, you were erasing them.
You were being hateful.
You were being hateful because that's their identity. But but notice how this works. It never starts that way.
No.
Yeah.
It starts as though this is just part of who I am.
Why do you care what we do in the bedroom?
Right.
It's
just part of what we do, what I am, and it's not my whole personhood, right? But that's just the camel's nose under the tent.
Right.
Okay, keep going. Is there more in here?
Do I have to keep going? Is the video over at this point?
I mean,
sure, it's over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whoa, gosh.
Pause.
Man, I am so done. Why are we watching this?
Well, so you remember 2 years ago, we actually
terms, Gabe,
pardon me.
Other than pedophile, are there any other terms that you know of?
There's epophile, and then there's another file.
Okay.
And there, Keith showed me this joke. Now, this comedian gets up and starts talking about the term pedophile, and he's like, "Stay with me, stay with me."
R. Kelly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and he's like, R. Kelly's not a pedophile.
And then he goes, he's not a pedophile because he's an epophile. And an epophile is basically the later
stages of puberty.
People are attracted to people who are in
13,
later
14,
stages,
15.
kind of thing. And the comedian kind of goes through all these different definitions. So he's like, well, the definition of pedophile is like really, infant, prepubescent, attracted to prepubescent people. And the comedian said, and we can't really talk about these distinctions because it makes you sound like a pedophile when you do. Right. So bringing up the distinction is kind of a moot point, because you just sound like a pedophile.
Because even that sort of thing, minor attracted. Like if you're a 19-year-old attracted to a 17-year-old, you're now minor attracted. So even the label is suddenly a ridiculous.
Right. Remember the foundational battle is over the dictionary.
Yeah, right? That's right.
This is why names matter. This is why words matter. Meanings of words matter.
Well, she understands that because she wants to get away from the judgmental aspect of what it means to be in this world.
And too often Christians give into this. At the place, it's what did Pastor Doug say, that we need to fight at the first crime scene?
Yeah, that's right.
There's too often Christians you should have
at the dictionary.
You should have struggled when they were pulling you into the black van. Not when you get to the place where they're going to.
And they're telling you to put the lotion on.
The next horrible thing. What's next?
That movie with the guys in the pit. And he's
speaking of lotion, the CDC actually just came out with updated guidelines on how to handle COVID. This is real.
Right.
That's a great transition.
This is insane.
Speaking of lotion.
This is actually hilarious because we've been actually arguing this from jump.
Schools are among the settings that no longer places
no longer need to screen.
No longer need to screen people exposed, but without symptoms.
Yeah. So the CDC is now recommending that you understand the risks.
Right.
Of the coronavirus.
Different people have different risks.
That's right. Are you older?
What year is this?
Do you have secondary? Yeah, exactly.
2022.
So understand the risk. Step 2, take steps to protect themselves and others through vaccines, therapeutics, and non-pharmaceutical interventions. That's probably the first time they put this up on their website.
Vitamin C?
Yeah, vitamin D. Get some sun. Receive testing and wearing a mask if they have been exposed, which doesn't work. Receive testing if they're symptomatic and isolate for 5 days or more if they are infected.
Yeah. Wow.
So this is the new CDC recommended guidelines. I believe San Diego, the school district, is still going to be requiring masks, at least as of last week. They're still going to be requiring masks when school starts in August, September.
But notice that no longer need to screen people exposed but without symptoms.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the things we've been saying from jump is that it is unjust. It's a violation of due process to treat a population as infected when there's no evidence.
Yeah.
2 or 3 witnesses at least. I mean, and if you have extreme bubonic plague and it's, there's a place for isolating that, but people with symptoms. But what we've been treated over the last couple of years as already, they've tried us and convicted us.
Yeah,
of
all the healthy people
infected because you might have been exposed.
That's right.
I mean that's actually a pretty significant shift, Gabe. That's a wow.
Well, it's pretty funny that the
fire
CDC.
the CDC.
Yeah,
fire them.
Well, we have all these health codes, and you got the Episcopalian Church going into training mode now. So now the Episcopalian Church is going into training mode.
No, stop it.
It's not. It's not. You don't. Do you think the Episcopalian Church is not the church anymore?
No.
They're anathematized.
Did you count my baptism?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
yes.
Because he's baptized before they went crazy.
No, just. But this is. I mean, this is like. Yeah. I mean, this is not. This is not church. This is not Christian
not.
church. This is what I mean. This is a synagogue of Satan. I mean, that's what this is.
Wow.
I mean, that's what they're doing. They're talking about grooming children. They're talking about destroying children, families. I mean, this is wicked. This is demonic.
Yeah. Well, and what was done in the pews has now made it to their bylaws.
I mean, and I say that, and I mean, at the same time, I mean, remember, like Jesus comes in the Gospels and he goes preaching through all the synagogues and casting out demons.
Yeah. In the synagogues.
If you wanted to find a demon in Palestine, you went to a synagogue.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's where he went casting out all the demons.
That's right.
So I mean, we've been here before.
Yeah.
Jesus does, demon infested synagogues.
Yeah.
And but they're dead. It's dead, and it needs to be raised to life.
So there's this recent video that was released. Every once in a while you see these videos of this guy going around or this lady going around asking questions, kind of testing how smart the population, general population
it's never
is.
How smart they are. I know what this is.
But this has to come from the church. This has to come from public schools because they've been doing all the discipling.
Yeah.
Well, this next clip, some of it's pretty bad.
Do you know what country we gained our independence from?
France?
Yes. How many states make up the United States? Around how many?
13.
Ooh.
Yes. Who fought in the Civil War?
As in, like, shooting range or, like, fighting? Shooting range.
Shooting range?
And, wait, what you mean? The first Civil War, second, third? Well, you never know. So, like, which one are you talking about?
The Civil War.
All right. If you want to get technical, I think it was Iraq. U.S. against Iraq.
Oh, against Iraq.
Yes.
You want to get technical?
You want to get technical.
Iraq.
Where was the war for independence fought? What country? France. Yeah.
From.
No, good.
No.
No good.
Yeah, this is. I mean, all this is connected.
Yeah.
The
The church isn't discipling.
Jesus said that the church is the light of the world, salt of the earth. If the salt loses its savor, it's good for nothing. It's thrown out. If the light goes out, if the light is under a bushel, then you can't see. You can't see where you're going. You can't see what you're doing. And that's what we're seeing here. The church has failed to disciple the nation. That might be considered Christian nationalism by some people, but whatever. We were supposed to disciple this nation, and what we have is a church that's actually leading the way in perversion. We've said this on the show before, but long before Episcopalians were saying abominations like this, of course, they had denied God's word when it came to the authority. What is a man? What is a woman?
Right.
Who's
the pastor?
Who's the pastor? Yep. Who is authorized to preach and whose job is it to protect the people? I mean, we had men acting like women in pulpits first, and then we had real women in pulpits, and then we had men who thought they were women in pulpits. I mean, that's
actually one of the things that led me out of the Episcopal Church. My sophomore year of high school, I sat down with the priest.
We forgive you.
Who was a guy.
No.
At this point, the priest was a guy. I asked him about believing the Bible. He goes, "Oh, well, these are just good stories." And then a year later, we had a female priest, and I remember I didn't read much of the Bible, but I remember reading like women can't be preachers or pastors, and I was just kind of like, we can't.
I do not permit a woman to teach.
Yeah, and so I remember just those two things were kind of like. Well, I remember at first it was like, well, then I'm out of the church. Like, if I'm going to go make my own stories, and then by the grace of God, I kept reading the scriptures, and He brought me back. But those were the two events in the Episcopal Church that kind of pushed me out a little bit, at least pursuing truth.
You spend a lot of time on campuses, Keith. I mean, you're dealing with kids that. These churches. I say churches in quotes again. If I think of these churches as old and dying.
Yeah, they're completely. Mainline churches have no presence on campus.
I was going to say, like, you're not running into kids who are like, well, I believe, I'm Episcopalian and I'm strongly committed to my church's doctrine, and so I'm a liberal Christian or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not running into that.
Not at all. The mainline churches are dead. The main gap that you have is your broader evangelical churches where they're just like, we just want to be loving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't want to be judgy.
Right.
And that's actually the kind of the way in a little bit is that component of we don't want to be judgy. We don't want to be harsh. And what we haven't really grasped, how do we bring grace and truth to a situation?
Right.
Jesus came with grace and truth. How do we take up our cross? And if you're taking up your cross, you can do those things.
So it starts, though, but this is back to the beginning, is we have evangelicals who want to be nice and winsome. And so, but we have frequently a failure of masculinity, a failure of, so these are, maybe they still technically believe that the pastors are to be men, but they're not allowed to act like men.
Yeah.
And that's the thing and I think that's actually the point. I mean, your point about grace and truth. I mean, that's actually a particular calling of men in leadership.
Yeah.
To stand fast, be bold, say, no, this is the line. You can't cross it. And to do it with grace.
Yeah.
And joy
if
and
there's
kindness.
anything that the church has communicated about being winsome and kind and all that, is that means that they're just on the path of going gay in 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
apart from the grace of God, that's exactly right.
And every church that kind of has argued that, the Episcopalian Church, the Methodist Church, I mean, they've all been kind of arguing that winsomeness and everything. And they're going gay.
Kind of play the tune again. When I was here a month ago, whatever, Knox asked me about this a couple times. But I've received a handful of emails or texts from people I met in 2019, and they've been converted. And the interesting thing to me was, like, they didn't use a biblical language of grace and truth. They're basically like, oh, you're just a Christian man who stood firm, and yet you were nice to us. You know what I mean? And so it's just like grace and truth, like that component. And that, believe it or not, that wins the day.
Right. And the thing that people frequently don't understand is that when you stand there, people will hate you in the moment. They will mock you. Mm-hmm. They will say all kinds of evil things against you falsely, just like Jesus said they would. Mm-hmm. But that is the moment where you actually show them kindness, because you don't return evil for evil.
Right.
You don't yell back at them. You don't lose your temper. You don't get angry. You stand there and you calmly stand your ground.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that people don't know. Like, it's after the collision. It's actually, that's the point where you show grace. It's where you love. It's where you actually love your enemies. I've said before on the show. I've said a number of times that, Christians love to say, you're supposed to love your enemies, and I say, all right, well, tell me their names.
Yeah,
and like
silence, just like this,
just like this. And people are like, I try to be nice to everybody, and you're like, oh, so you're saying you actually don't have any enemies to love because you haven't stood for the truth in such a way to actually make enemies to love.
That's right.
But that's the thing is the Christian church has to recognize that is the place where we shine.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's when you stand for the truth, it collides with unbelief, and then you stand there and you smile, and then when they whatever fall down, you help them up.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're hungry, you give them something to eat. They're thirsty, you give them something to drink.
Right.
And that's the place where the gospel shines.
And have the confidence that a good word was like collision. When that collision happens, the person who's coming after me the hardest, what amazes me the most, they're the ones always coming back a semester later, a year later. And I remember a couple years ago, I was on this campus, this guy just comes up, just starts wailing away on me, not literally, but like metaphorically. And I remember I kept kind of pushed him slightly, and a Christian guy was like, why would you do that to him? I was like, he'll be back. Sure enough, a week later, he's like, I want to apologize about last week. I went home, I read all about you, read about Whitfield, and it was like, and that guy, the guy who passively walks by with the middle finger, he's not going to do anything. But the guy who's in my face, and so that should just encourage us, like, yes, be gracious, be kind, because it's actually, believe it or not, something's happening in that person more so than the passive individuals.
Right.
So this past week, last thing here, everyone's been following the whole FBI Trump.
Everybody?
Everyone. Everyone has been tuning in across politics.
You all been following this?
If you could bring up President Trump's social media post. So the FBI or the DOJ actually released the classified warrant that they used to go to Trump's Mar-a-Lago place. And the judge who signed it defended Epstein's assistant.
Oh gosh.
His pilots. And I forget one other person.
Were they looking for Hunter Biden's laptop?
Not at all. They wouldn't do that.
Bummer.
Yeah, they wouldn't do that. So apparently there's about 20 boxes that was removed from Trump's residence, and that the classified information included Trump's pardon of Roger Stone, some nuclear information, supposedly some nuclear information, and then some of Trump's classified information regarding how he's handling the president of France, apparently who he didn't like, called him a liar and snake and all this stuff.
Okay.
So Trump actually released this is actually deleted. This post, the second post wasn't deleted, but here's what Trump said on social media earlier on Friday. He said, number one, it was all declassified. So he said, as president, he actually declassified the information. He has certain authority.
Do we know why this was deleted?
I don't know.
I mean,
we don't know.
Okay.
We looked into it and couldn't find it. So it's possible. I would think his
lawyer?
lawyers. Yeah, it's possible his lawyers like, hey, you might want to delete that one.
Get that one up there.
Number two, they didn't. But we got it. That's what matters, right? There you go. Number two, they didn't need to seize anything. They could have had it anytime they wanted without playing politics and breaking into Mar-a-Lago. So the FBI broke into Mar-a-Lago. It was a secured storage with additional lock as per their request.
That additional lock, I think, is the key.
Yeah,
when he gets off, it's because
the additional lock. Yeah, like, we were following protocol. Is what happened. Second post, he said they could have had it any time they wanted. That includes long ago. All they had to do was ask. The bigger problem was that they are going to do it with what are they going to do with the 33 million pages of documents, many of which are classified, that President Obama took to Chicago. So apparently there's some, he said, she said stuff about, presidents taking classified information from the White House and everything. So President Trump did take classified information from the White House, had it in his house. Supposedly some of it or all of it was declassified. I can't help but wonder that Trump was baiting them, because apparently they had asked already. They'd asked multiple times. Pardon me?
I said, Gabe's optimistic at 4D chess. He's like, Trump's.
I know.
This is the Kraken. This is the Kraken they were talking about.
This is the Kraken.
This is the Kraken.
Well, I can't help but why was Trump holding off on the classified information? What was he thinking? I can't help but thinking
that.
So
they had asked?
They had asked. So they had asked a couple times. Okay. They had been working with him, and it got to the point where the DOJ didn't believe him anymore, and which is, there's a breakdown of trust a long time ago there. What do you mean? You didn't believe him the first time, but you believed him the first time and not the fourth time? And so anyways, they get to this point, and so that's why they requested the warrant, was because there's a breakdown of trust or whatever and all this. So,
speaking of breakdowns of trust, using a smartphone or computer opens the door to a host of digital temptations. In a world saturated with pornography and other harmful content, what's a Christian to do? We need to take a proactive approach, welcoming transparency in our digital media choices. And Accountable to You makes that easy. We should probably tell Donald Trump about Accountable to You.
It's that extra key. It's extra lock.
Extra lock. Yeah. Accountability software shares detailed activity reports from all your devices and your kids' devices in real time to the accountability partners that you choose. With accountability in place, your family can effectively guard against temptations online and live with purity and integrity, and probably avoid having the FBI come to your house. Learn more and try it free at Accountable to You. That's the word accountable, the number 2, the word you.com/FLF.
Which they're going to be at our conference in October. So you can talk to them. Yeah, okay. Accountable to You is going to be at our conference in October.
Okay, it's time for the wrap-up. Ready?
Let's do it. Friday wrap-up.
On Monday, we talked to Pastor Brandon Huber about how he was canceled by the National Realtors Association, or at least by the Missoula branch, when somebody brought an ethics complaint against him when his church declined to participate in a community food drive that included some pro-homosexual literature. We also talked about the Gravity Reduction Act, recently passed by it's Inflation Reduction Act. And how,
gravity.
And how, whatever it was, we don't think they actually reduced gravity at all.
Inflation. Right, let me help you there.
Sorry, it seems like it was the same thing. On Tuesday, Gabe and Keith interviewed Paul Miller on his book, The Religion of American Greatness, and Keith repented of his Christian nationalism on the spot. You guys remember that, right? You remember that? Yeah.
Tears and everything.
Yeah, he was crying, he went forward, everything.
Jesus is not king.
I actually listened to half of the interview from the hallway, but it just seemed like Keith and Gabe were taking care of business, and I was just going to let you guys
Thank you,
do
Toby.
it. So,
Thank you.
I was like, I can't stand that.
He said he's not coming in without Knox. That's what I remember.
I refuse
if Knox
participate in this interview.
On Wednesday, Aaron Snell, the maestro master of the Fight Laugh Feast conferences, came and joined us to talk about the Mar-a-Lago raid by the FBI, because we needed him.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes.
Watch.
I mean, it goes together. The whole thing is a mess, but we talked about the potency and danger of beer and psalms. Some folks want to know why we kick off our conferences with beer and psalms, and the reason is because we want to make men godly and dangerous again. Can we make hats and t-shirts that say that? Make men godly and dangerous again. Wine is dangerous, beer is dangerous, but the most potent thing you can get in most Christian churches today is Welch's grape juice once a month. And that pretty much explains why the modern church is so gay. Speaking of gay, yesterday we had Doug Main-Waring.
Whoa.
Main-Waring?
Main-Waring?
Yeah, Main-Waring.
You kept on saying Waring, and he told you.
I know, but I like that pronunciation better. I did. I really did.
This is what Gabe does. He just says it the way he wants to. Yeah. We had him on to talk about the infiltration of homosexuality in the conservative movement. From Dave Rubin's, freezers full of breast milk, and Spencer Clavin recently getting married, quote unquote, and the Log Cabin Republicans to Donald Trump himself and the National Conservatism Conference. The elephant in the room is not Republicans, but sodomy. Doug is a repentant homosexual who saw the dark and fruitless lifestyle from the inside, and by God's grace came out and reconciled with his wife.
Praise God.
And now writes regularly to expose that movement. If you missed the show, Highly recommend you check it out.
I had several people come be like, what a great show interviewing him.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it,
yeah,
go watch
it was really good. My wrap-up thought today is a quick plug actually for our Fight, Laugh, Feast conference.
Ooh.
The theme we've chosen is lies, propaganda, storytelling, and the serrated edge. We chose this topic because we believe that Christians need to do a better job seeing through the lies and propaganda and false stories and mockery of pagans and liberals. But the answer is not just defensive. Too often, the best conservatives can do is whine and complain.
That's right.
But we want to see a new generation of Christians rise up that not only sees through the lies and propaganda, but who also see the potency of good stories and God's word. God has not left us powerless, but we frequently don't believe that his weapons are really all that powerful. But his word is full of stories and poetry and songs, and it is our sharp sword. But having marinated in his word, he has given us a rich tradition of literature and stories that are true and good and
That's
beautiful. Right. All the old stories have dragons and giants and princesses because that's the story of the world. We were made for adventure and combat. We were made to fight crafty dragons, to kill big thuggish giants, and to save fair maidens. We have better stories than the liberals, better songs, and those songs and stories will win if we will only read them and sing them in faith. Amen. So it's an invitation to join us in Knoxville to be better equipped to see through the lies and see the potency of God's good word and all the good stories.
And I think here's the thing is, the church has really neglected stories. Yeah. We really have neglected the power of storytelling.
I mean, I think frequently that, parents think it's a nice thing to read stories to your kids. And it is a nice thing, but here's the thing, it's a powerful thing.
Right.
That's the part that we've forgotten.
Right.
Like, when you're reading to your kids stories about, the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lord of the Rings, when you're reading Beowulf around the table, in the living room, late at night, they're falling asleep to great stories.
That's right.
You are training warriors.
That's right.
You're doing battle. You're telling them that God's story wins.
Yeah. And I think one of the central elements, I remember when I got into Reformed theology, I remember thinking, I don't want any stories in my preaching. Like, I basically wanted a systematic theology, and that's not where you live. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it took years for me to realize, it was actually, I think, maybe Doug Wilson circa 2005 had like a series of just stories in the Bible, and you kind of realize,
the Bible's full of stories. It's full of stories.
He didn't give us a systematic theology by Bavinck or something.
He gave us, we have the book of Romans. Okay, great. But that's one book. You have Kings, and you got Chronicles, and you got Samuel, and you got Judges, and you got Genesis, and you got Acts. You got the four Gospels. Stories are potent. They are shaping imaginations. They are shaping loves. They are shaping your faith. They are making you a mighty man, a mighty woman. And we need to recover the full-orbed, sharp blade of God's word.
We hope to see you in Knoxville. Make sure you download the app. Catch us on the app. That's probably the best place to catch us on. And join the club, as Toby exhorted you at the beginning. Daily Wire is going gay. The Blaze is going gay.
Not here.
What else? Fox.
Not us.
Episcopal Church.
Knox isn't here. Go fight, laugh, and feast.
When tyrants take over, what's the first thing they do? Disarm. It happened in Russia, China, Germany, and most recently, Afghanistan. Why? Because disarmed people are easier to control. And over the last century and a half, American tyrants have been carrying out a slow, methodical disarmament that no one is talking about. State education. Tyrants know that education is warfare. Our rulers have a vested interest in making you totally harmless. They've got big plans and they don't want you getting in the way. Think about it. Would you rather fight an army decked out with high-powered rifles or a bunch of dinky water pistols? They know that if you can think critically, you're a threat. At New St. Andrews College, we want to graduate men and women who are dangerous. Dangerous to the world, dangerous to the principalities and powers, dangerous to spiritual wickedness in high places. Education can either arm you or disarm you. It can make you a threat or make you a useful idiot. So, where you get that education counts. Click the link to apply to New St. Andrews College today.
Home. It's where you build your legacy, where traditions are started, seeds are planted, meals are shared, and stories are told. We are Chris and Natalie Carpenter, owners of Story Real Estate, and our team of top agents helps people find homes in Moscow, Idaho, and around the country.
Have you thought about a move? Contact us to get connected with a top agent who shares your values and puts your family first. Or reach out to us about our Moscow relocation guide.
Wherever you're looking to go, we can help you find home. Call us at Story Real Estate or visit us at storyrealestate.com and start building your legacy.